Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of Spoiler Force Podcast. You can find more episodes on any podcasting platform such as Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and make sure to follow Spoiler Force Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch.
This is Mark Whitten, and you're listening to Spoiler Force Podcast. Set your heart ablaze.
This is a FlowGasm Beats production.
All right, so this is episode 96 of Spoiler Force Podcast. My name is Ricky, and thank you for tuning in. This week's guest is my cousin Michael Outtaphone. He's been on the podcast before on the Famcast episode, which you can check out. I believe I dropped that earlier this year. So again, thank you, Michael, for making the time to be on the podcast here. And as you can see in the title, Strangers Never Again by Wong Fu Productions, recently just finished. By the time this episode's out, the series is already on YouTube for free. I paid $20 for it. It's originally 15, but I tipped them an extra 5 just because I don't know, maybe I'm a bit OCD or something. But $20 is not, I wouldn't even say not even enough. Wong Fu Productions does such a fantastic job. Yeah, so Michael, again, thank you for being a guest here. And how did you get into the whole Strangers Never Again before we start off into the review?
Honestly, I I was really into the whole Wong Fu Productions when they were kind of like at the YouTube was booming at the time, and especially with the Asian community, they were doing like great things, like some of the Cathy, Nguyen, David Choi. I mean, what were some other names that it's been so long I can't even think of, but these names came from Wong Fu, well, not necessarily from Wong Fu. They kind of just like they helped build that network, and I around that time I was a teenager, spent a lot of time just watching YouTube. So I was first introduced to Wong Fu through that, but it's strange because I actually Strangers Again was recommended to me when I was going through one of our first really big breakups, just to kind of like Bobby, actually, I think it was Bobby. Yeah, he recommended it to me. So I watched it, and then it's just, I was really lost, and it kind of needed some kind of reality, something to kind of connect my feelings. So I found it through there. And I just, it meant something different to me than at the time, but I went back to go rewatch it from that time a couple years later, and I appreciated it a whole lot more for how I guess how real it felt, if you will, relatable, if you will. But yeah, that's how I came across Strangers Again.
Yeah, that it's definitely relatable for sure. Like especially just watching it as a teenager, because I believe in my senior year or junior year of high school, like just before the end of high school. And definitely Wong Fu Productions, their skits and their short films and stuff like that are definitely geared towards a much like younger audience, for like young adults or young adults going to college and stuff like that. And I don't know how I came across, I forgot how, but I just randomly did. Because originally I wasn't a big fan of the Wong Fu stuff. I was always aware of who they were until Strangers Again actually aired on their YouTube channel. And that's when I got hooked to all their content. So to me, Strangers Again is probably their best, I guess you could say, original short film that they have out of their content. At least that's what I think.
It's the reason I'm smiling is because like I'm actually, after hearing you say that, it's taking me back to like I think one of the first skits was like Yellow Fever or something like that. Did you ever watch that?
I don't recall that one. The earliest one I can recall was their picture day one.
Oh,
like where they take pictures.
Because they were known for doing all these really lighthearted,
like comedic skits.
Comedy skits, and they started going into like more of a deeper, like more poetic side, which I really started to like, being a teenager going through like emotions. You can't help but kind of resonate with it, Um, but yeah, it's geez, they have done so much like both lighthearted, funny, and also really meaningful. Like I didn't watch the whole series of it, but I remember when they did the pilot episode for Single by 30.
Oh, I actually watched that entire thing. I think last year. It was definitely during COVID because that's when they were like, because it's COVID, you guys get to watch it for free type of thing. I think
Oh
it's
yeah,
still free, but I watched it all, and that was definitely inspired by their whole other big one. The what was it? What was it called? It's the one with Kina Grannis and Harry Shum Jr. I forgot the title. I just know it's like based off the who, what, where, when, why.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know. For some
Oh
reason,
my
like
god, I'm trying to
my
brain
memory is
fart
just
here.
drawing a blank.
What?
It's just been a while. It's been so
It's
long.
like he said something like, "Because you're not one of them, you're all of them."
Oh,
I-
that one. Yeah. When the guy's talking about like they're like,
God damn it!
how many have you been with before?
Yeah, I gotta hold on. It's bugging me now. Hold
Yeah.
on. It's bugging me.
That was really that one was a really good one too.
What's it called? The Last. That's what it's called. Oh
Yeah,
my
the
god!
last. That's
Right?
right.
How
That's what it
can we
was.
say we like Wong Fu and we can't even remember their fucking
Well,
short
it's 'cause, like,
films?
I don't know. I remember it's but that's a crazy thing though. It's 'cause, like you remember what they're kind of about, and you remember the messages and the impact that it had on you more so than the title of it. And I think that's what makes it so great.
Yeah, but the
So
character says it in the skit though, because he's like,
yeah, he
he's like,
does. I guess.
you're the last, and then the music cues in, and then it ends off with that. Like, I always liked that one too, but I've always felt like Strangers Again hit closer to home. Again, especially being a young adult and then going through, they break down the stages of just like relationship building from like meeting to the chase to honeymoon to comfortable to downhill to the breakup. I think that's all the steps, right?
I think so. I think yeah.
I feel like I felt like I missed a step.
It's like the chase, yeah, honeymoon, and then comfortable and downhill. I think yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. But no, one of the things I think one of the reasons why it was such a success is because I mean, it's I guess with like our generation, those who were in a certain age group, were kind of going through that in that time. They were some of them are either they're in college or still in high school, and they're going through relationships, and they're going through heartbreaks and breakups, and they just kind of want something to relate to. And in a sense, like one of the reasons why it struck a chord with me again, because it was very relatable. But yeah, that it's weird that like that was 10 years ago, and then you fast forward to now. I really didn't really like even think back to it, but once you I remember you're the one who was telling me about the Strangers Never Again coming up, and it all came like rushing back.
All the nostalgia.
Yeah, it's just because I don't know, it is one of their most impactful skits that they did, I would say.
So with we're not gonna exactly review the entire first part based off the title here on the screen, as you can see. We'll just briefly talk about our thoughts on it first before actually diving deep into the sequel, because again, as we've been saying before, Strangers Again was one that's incredibly impactful in our lives, especially as young adults. And I really enjoyed how they wrote this skit, because I think it's only like 10 to 12 minutes or so, maybe a little bit less. But for something that short and very precise with their message, I really enjoyed what Wong Fu Productions has done. When you look back at it now, it's like, even I still think it's great. Like whether or not like people critique them of their acting or their productions, I still think for that time it was really well done for what they have, because even in the sequel now, like the sequel practically looks like a movie now.
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to reserve my words, because they have truly like outdone themselves with. To me, I feel like they've outdone themselves with Strangers Never Again, and I really can't wait to say why. I know we'll eventually get there. So,
What was your thoughts overall though with Strangers Again? Like in not just how impacted you, but just the story itself. You know, with the characters of Marissa and um, what's his name, Josh, right?
yeah,
Is it
Josh and Marissa. Yeah.
yeah.
You said what was my thoughts on it?
Yeah, what's your thoughts on the two main characters, since it's about them?
I think they do a really good job of like kind of like allowing you to like be invested in each of them. Um like I'm trying to recall all the details of it, but you know, I guess you probably hear me say this a lot, but relatable. Because you know, if you've ever been in that kind of like relationship, part of the relationship where you're chasing and the honeymoon phase, and it's very understandable, and then you can't help but kind of become a little invested in the both of them, you know. Especially what kind of tore my heart apart was at the end, um when Josh goes up to Marissa and says, um, hey, let's not break up. And then it cuts back and he says that's what should have happened. And then that part, like, I guess it goes to show what I thought of them. You know, you want them to end up together. But when it comes back and he says like that's what should have happened, it's just like, oh, my heart.
You know, I never caught that part till recently. Like I had to watch their commentary of 10 years later of Cathy, Nguyen and Philip talking about their like what like commentary making comments on the video of like how it was 10 years ago. And I never caught that all these years. I always wondered, like, did he if he ever did go and chase her at the car, and then after Phil confirmed that he never did, it was just in his head. Like it made so much more sense to me now that they actually did just broke up. Like the breakup happened and he never pursued her. So and it just makes it so much more I guess not heart-wrenching, but like it just pulls your heartstrings more in the sequel.
Yeah,
which we'll get to when he thinks of it. But you know, I always thought that he did make that move, and I was completely wrong all this time.
Yeah. Maybe it was just like
I don't know. Maybe it's how they cut the scene.
Maybe it's your subconscious. Because again, you become so invested in, and subconsciously you just want them to end up together. And maybe they did that so well that in your mind you wanted them to end up together.
Like,
so in your mind, that they did.
They worked out. Like I believe they worked it out. You know.
Yeah, they worked it out.
But I do enjoy seeing how they tell the story between these two. You know how they just met to just being together, and then I think where it really gets realistic is like when they hit the comfortable stage, like where when you can truly be yourself around someone or your significant other, and without having any like second thoughts of how you're acting, and you can just be happy with someone. And then it does. I haven't been in too many relationships to where like I can fully just have that long-term experience, but you know, and just seeing like friends and family go through stuff like that, and you kind of see those stages, bits and pieces of it. You know, you can tell when they're in a rough patch, or you can tell when they're in that honeymoon phase, and just seeing their relationship in Strangers Again, it just, again, it's very realistic. And I really liked how the part where where Marissa comes home and she's like venting to Josh, and then she says something to downplay him, and then they start arguing, you know, and then and then yeah, just the way how they you see the relationship, their relationship just break apart gradually up until where, you know, then you see like the future aspect of it, of them breaking up at the park and stuff like that, which I don't think any of that part actually happened. I think they just broke up when she drove off in the car, right? Or at least that's what I think.
You know, it's weird how the timeline of all that is, because they do show that one scene. It's a cut. So in the timeline of the actual skit, it doesn't happen at the very end, but I think it's implied that it does.
Oh, okay.
Because that's when they're sitting there, and then they're kind of like,
they're trying to like talk it out.
Yeah, they pretty much just like officially break up.
Okay. Yeah. See, like I don't know. I'm not trying to say like I can fully review this and know everything. So anyone who's listening or watching, we're not pros. Yeah, we're not pros. So we're just giving like a hot take on it right now, because we literally just got done rewatching it several times in the past 2 weeks.
By the way, if you haven't watched it yet, you shouldn't be watching this, but go watch it. It's so good.
Yeah. If you have not, definitely go check out Wong Fu Productions and check out Strangers Again and Strangers Never Again. It should be free on YouTube by the time this episode drops, like I've said before earlier. Want a simpler way to record both video and audio podcasts? Then sign up with StreamYard. StreamYard is the perfect program to create podcasts, host live streams, and even do video calls. There are many tools to help you create and design your own personal studio. You can screen share, read live comments, and stream to multiple destinations such as Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. You can also download your video and audio recordings after each session. Follow the link in the description, and once you sign up with the basic or pro plan, you'll earn a $10 credit to use for StreamYard. Do you want to start your own podcast? Then sign up with Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout has helped hundreds of thousands of users to begin their podcasting journey. With easy-to-use tools, you can effectively get your podcast onto many platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and more. You can view stats, create audio clips, and even have your own podcasting website. Buzzsprout also offers ideas, tips, tricks, and tutorials to help you improve your podcast. Follow the link below, and once you sign up, you'll get a $20 Amazon gift card. This will let Buzzsprout know that I sent you and also support Spoiler Force Podcast. Happy podcasting. If you're into anime, manga, or anything that's from Japan, Otaku Detroit is the place for you. Located at 513 West, 11 Mile Road in Madison Heights, Michigan, you can find a variety of manga books, anime figures, collectibles, posters, snacks, and even authentic items from Japan. Stop on by to see store owner Matt and let him know Spoiler Force sent you. Before we continue on to the sequel, though, I do want to just say, like, with Strangers Again, it really did create its own like story, and people are so I never realized like how invested folks were into this story, even though it was only like a little short film like that, and people wanted so much more. And I really appreciate the fact that Wong Fu Productions still kept their eyes on it. They knew that the fans wanted more. They wanted a sequel. They wanted to see Josh and Marissa's characters come back, and I'm so glad that they took the time to really just revamp this series again and do the sequel in a right way, and not like rush it. Even though it did take 10 years, they didn't. It doesn't seem like they rushed this project, or they just did it to please the fans. They really did take their time making it piece by piece, and I'm so glad that they actually did it in 3 parts instead of just one 10-minute film.
And the 3-part was a great call, because it when we watched it, obviously we had all access to all 3 episodes, but for those because I told my friend Philip about it, and he's I think I asked him what he thought of episode 2, and he's like, dude, I need to know what happens. He's like there's the real cliffhangers,
yes, and I think that's what really makes it so much more people get so much more invested, because my buddy Andrew, when he didn't buy it, but he watched the first part, and at the end of that first part, that cliffhanger for the first part, he's like, he messaged me right away. He's like, what the fuck, man? Like, I need more. But yeah, man, since we're on this topic already, man, we'll just start diving into the school, man, because with Strangers Never Again, it's 10 years after the first part, and you see you see Josh go through the dream sequences of him like dating and being with Marissa at first, and then you see the who is she? The girl who plays April, Dia Frampton, is that her name?
Yeah, dear Frampton.
Okay, yeah, I know you know more about her than I do. I don't know much of her content.
I was never like a big Mega fan, but I did. So she was a part of a group called with her sister called Megan Dia, and they had a couple songs that I really liked. But I mean, I remember who she is, so that's, you know, they were big enough to me at the time for me to recall. Oh, that's Dia Frampton. Plus, she does other stuff on the side, but that's like she sings for EDM records and all that.
Oh, okay. Yes, I wouldn't have known that, but you know, you see Josh's character just wake up and think about the past of what's happened to him in those 10 years, and then I love the narration style that they do. Like they make it really seem like the audience is connected with Josh at first, since the first part is based on him, and then you see him go through like the ex-girlfriends and seeing him talk about how he went through these stages of dating, and then by the time he's 30 he just doesn't feel as comfortable, or what the word jaded was like the word that really hit me. And that's why when I messaged you, I'm like, dude, what the fuck, man, I feel attacked.
I remember you saying that.
I was like, the hell, you know, I like, does Wong Fu know about me right now? Like, what the hell? It's just it just really resonated with me, because, you know, both of us being either I'm almost close to 30. I'm like 28 turning 29 this year, and you recently just turned 31, right?
Yep, correct. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, I don't want to put your age out there, but for the sake of the review, it's because we can relate to Josh's character at this point. Like Josh is 30 at this time, or a little over 30, and you know, he talks about like how in our 30s we know what we want by this point. We're all adults now, and it's not like in our 20s where we're just risking it all, relationships and careers and college education for our future. And I really like that they address that, especially towards the older audience, and that way we can all relate to what's happening in this story. And again, I enjoyed that aspect of this first part for Josh, and you know, he talks about like being jaded and then being afraid to commit into the relationships after hitting like stage 2 or something like that, and so he meets April, and yeah, and then like he breaks it down more and talks about like how he got comfortable with April, and then he got to a new stage, which was, I believe, Reliance, and it was for the character. He starts to realize like, oh, maybe marriage is a thing. And before I continue on, though, speaking of that stage 4, I forgot to bring this up. The Strangers again, part 1, that final scene where him and Marissa are eating, and they talk about like, you know, do you want to marry me? And because we only have two options at this point.
Yeah.
That last scene,
go ahead.
dude, that last fucking scene was probably the one that pulled my heartstrings the most, because that Kina Grannis music too, Cambridge, and just I love it. Like the music, I just messaged you this earlier. Like the music score for Strangers Again and Strangers Never Again is super underrated. It's so good. And but back to the review again, it's just, you see this difference between Josh's characters when he's in a good relationship versus a one that's breaking apart, and how the stage 4 really took a turn. It was either you're gonna go downhill or pretty much go uphill from there. But then you see that later on, Josh's character is not with April anymore, and obviously he was projecting past emotions on her. I'm assuming he was making her feel really insecure at this point too, by throwing all these problems at her. And then like he's back to like square one again, being really awkward around her. And at this point of their relationship, you know, they got friends who know each other. David Choi's character is gonna get he's throwing that birthday party for his soon to be fiance at this point in the story. And I do want to say this too, they call him Donald in the first part, and then they changed it to Dom. Did you catch that?
I actually didn't.
because I got so confused because they kept calling him Dom, but then in the first part he said Donald. So I'm like, so is he Toretto now? Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I don't know what's his name. But yeah, but what was your thoughts like up to that point to where where Josh talks about and he narrates his I guess where he's been. What was your thoughts on that first part so far? And before we continue on,
the first of all, I guess throughout the whole skit, but more so like just the monologues are the transition. The monologues are great, and then the transitions from the monologues into the actual story setting was phenomenal. And the way that it was seamless, but it was enough to information and storytelling to kind of let us know what's going on without breaking the immersion, especially since it actually is Josh telling it. And then also, because I've actually been there too. I've actually been through probably all of these these phases, and I think a lot of people have. But the whole getting comfortable, and then I haven't really been so much in the part where like you kind of jumped ship, and then before it goes downhill. But he did mention a couple of things too, like reliance, and then I don't know if these are steps or not, but there's the problems where there's reliance and then there's projecting. So I just really love how they're able to address these things, because these are things that people our age have gone through, or more than likely have gone through something like this, and for me personally, when I was watching it, I was just really like reflective on a lot of my past relationships, and just really it kind of hit home. I'm like, man, this is real stuff here. this is like reality. And then when I love how it cuts to the scene when they're at the birthday party, and she's in the background and he's explaining, we're at the same party, but as you can probably tell, we're not together. We're not talking. And I have been in certain situations like that before too, where there's mutual friends between me and my exes, and we were in the same area, and it was just, I remember how awkward it was. So like also relatable.
well, they make it a really mature thing for Josh to even be around that area. Because for me personally, I would have just dipped. I would not stay around my ex. I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd just be like, ugh, I would dread. I mean, because me personally, I am pretty petty at times. So if I was ever in a room around an ex and mutual friends, I'd just be like, fuck it, I'm dipping out. I wouldn't stay.
If I could be real, like, okay, so when me and the ex I'm talking about, we were in the same room as like mutual friends. It's like, I don't know, I can be petty too, but at the same time, I'm kind of like territorial. So I'm like, it's like, these are my friends. I'm not leaving. it's like these are my friends. Like, if you're awkward, then you need to go.
Start squeezing in, like, oh, let me get in here. But speaking of that though, like to the point, like Donald or Dom and Josh talk about how he's gonna move on with the progression of his relationship, and then after Josh finds out that news, he actually runs into April in that scene, and I love how the awkwardness is there, because like he's saying his goodbyes before he leaves, and then they make eye contact, and it's like, shit, you can't look away, or you can't just turn around and walk. I would have turned around and just walked away. I'm like,
yeah.
But then I love how they still stayed mature. They talked for a little bit just to see how they were doing, and then they just agreed to we'll just greet each other next time, until waiting at the end of the party to say something. And then you see that, and it's just, again, like I said, I love that awkwardness between them. They both Phil and Dave Frampton did such a good job at portraying like just there's still something there, but then it's really not, and you don't want to make it weird, you know. And
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
because even she says, like, he says to her, like, I thought maybe you didn't want to see me, and she even says, like, at first I didn't, but then I saw you, then I kind of did. You know, it's just it shows the transparency of like how of her feelings and how she's really coping with the I guess the breakup and everything too. So really well done.
Yeah, it was, and I think Dave Frampton deserves a lot more credit, man. Like the way how she acts in this
Oh
series,
my
dude. Like
gosh.
for like she doesn't have a lot of screen time, but for what she does, she did so well.
You can hear me when we get on
Yeah,
episode
when we
3.
get to the third part, yeah, it's good. But for just like this first part, though, when getting introduced to her because she's a new character, I really liked how well she acted as her part. But to move on, Josh is a real estate agent selling homes and stuff, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Like after that party, and they go to his job, and then he's selling the home to this married couple or this new couple, and pretty much at the end of this first part, man, you just hear Cathy Nguyen's voice, and then he turns around and it's Marissa. And
Yeah.
I love this parallel here, right? Because it kind of parallels to that first part where when he turns around, he's like Marissa, and he smiles. It kind of, you remember that park scene in the first Strangers Again, where like where supposedly where after they broke up, they met at the park, and he's like, "Oh, hi, hey Marissa," and then she's like, "Yeah, I moved to San Francisco or whatever." Kind of like parallels that a little bit, and but instead of it being a scenario in his head, it's actually like is real. It's like right then and there, and then
Yeah.
they see each other, they meet eyes, and their eyes meet, and then cuts. And like, what a great way to end that
Yeah,
first
man.
part.
I was just like, oh, let's go.
Yeah, I was really surprised that they held off that long to have Cathy Nguyen's character come in, because I thought they were gonna introduce or not introduce but like showcase both of them in the first part,
Mhm.
but that really caught me off guard. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, the whole you realize that the whole first episode is kind of more based on Josh and where he was coming from. But if I can rewind just a little, just to actually one of the parts where Josh was dating. One of the funniest things to me, like I don't know, I'm not taking any jabs, but I think
Oh, the girl
when
with the
Wong Fu
crystals.
yeah, the girl with the horoscopes, and that was so hilarious. I laughed like I
The Mercury
legitimately
retrograde.
rolled out of my chair, like laughing at that scene. He's like, "You feel it? Oh yeah, feels good." You know?
I don't know, man. That's kind of like the thing right now, man. I don't know if a lot of dudes are into it, but I know a lot of women are into the whole horoscope universe, stars, and all that. I don't want to say bullshit, but I don't think. To me, it's just like shit you read in the newspaper, like fortune cookie shit. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, if people get mad about me saying that, then I'm sorry, but I don't believe in horoscopes. It's super generalized. Unless it specifically says my name, then maybe I'll believe it. But I really
Yeah, first
doubt.
and last name, just
Right?
not just any name, not just the
But
first name alone.
all that juju stuff, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I think it's a placebo
Well,
effect.
the thing is, I know some people who like are just lightly into that, and who just like kind of like, oh, that's cool. It must be a coincidence. And there's some like diehard people, they're like, oh, you must be like something, and there's like, like apparently I'm a Leo rising. I can't even
Oh, yeah.
remember. I don't even know. Jeez, it's
Okay, tangent right here, but you seen that Daquan Wiltshire video I sent you, right?
yeah.
Okay, I won't get into detail of that video, but then if you follow Daquan Wiltshire, check that one out, dude. I was dying in that video. But yes, bringing it back to horoscopes, yeah, like it's a whole rising and sunset or whatever stuff that is.
Yeah, it's so good. I'm sorry.
Oh man. But yeah, I just thought it was funny how they wrote that into the skit for his date, because Josh was like really, you could see his character was really like not spooked out, but he just didn't
Like,
care. It's like,
it's
was
like,
weird, you know, like, but you have to do it because you're on the date.
yeah.
Oh
So
man, that.
that's
Oh, go
actually
ahead.
one of the things that they actually put you're gonna see me list a lot of things off throughout the podcast that I think Wong Fu did really tactfully to like make this really, as I said, relatable. Um, Ironically too, I don't know about you, but I have a lot of friends who are getting into real estate also. So that I don't know. Maybe it might just be me and me alone, but
No,
that's
there's a lot
another
of
thing
Hmong
that's
people.
pretty.
There's a lot of Hmong folks on Facebook that are real estate agents. I have
Yeah.
my cousin's husband. He's a real estate agent. So
Oh,
I don't know anything about real estate. I just
yeah,
know
me
that
neither.
that's a big market or a big job because of the market right now.
But that's one of the things that makes this feel so like real. Like it's actually in today. It's not like just some made up fictional
Oh
time
yeah,
thing.
like Josh
It's
is not like
the
some astronaut or
real
some shit.
world. Yeah. So, but I just kind of wanted to rewind to that because I might have forgotten to talk about it. But that was, geez, I laughed pretty hard at that. So
Well, I don't know who she is, but the actress who played that role was like really spot on too, like the
oh
whole
yeah,
energy and vibes and all that crap. But yeah, to move on to the second part where
Yeah.
it is now Marissa's turn to showcase her story, and we see what she's been doing. Because I really do feel like Strangers again back to the first part, even though they were both in there, Josh was narrating the story. So a lot of
yeah.
as an audience, or as someone watching it, I kind of just put myself in Josh's shoes, and kind of just saw Marissa as not a background character, but she was more support. You see and you understand why she's upset and why she thought and did things, but then you never really get to see her perspective. And I like that Wong Fu did that for part two, because now you see what she's gone through, what is she doing now. And I really enjoyed the fact that they played the part where they wrote out the part where she had a child, because Cathy Nguyen actually has a kid. And I believe that's actually her daughter playing her kid.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I believe that's her daughter playing that
Wow.
role as her kid. I think I sent you one of the I sent you the Wong Fu behind the scenes video. I don't know if you watched it though.
I think I didn't get around to watching that yet.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
they just did another one not too long ago. I haven't watched it yet, but yeah, it's I really like that because it really brought realism to these to like someone's relationship, because kind of backpedaling here, even Josh states in the first part, like, you see your exes get married and get engaged and have kids and whatnot. And Marissa, Captain Wen's character, she's, she has a kid. And it makes it really realistic, like down to earth, because not everyone who you, or at least someone or the people that you date, not everyone is still single or like that. Everyone moves on. And I really enjoyed that writing where like she moved on, she had a child, but then the downside to that was that she had a really bad relationship, or like what people say today, it was really toxic.
Right. Yeah.
I tried to find different words instead of just toxic, but that's the
toxic is such a toxic word.
Yeah, that's just what people say these days to make themselves sound really good. But anyways, Marissa's character, she has a really bad relationship with the baby dad's. His name is Gene. Is that his name?
Yeah, I think that was his name. Yeah.
And they share custody of the child. She's a single mom. She's divorced and she's working, and she's flipping houses, which is ironic because Josh is the one selling houses, which I thought that was a pretty cool parallel. But yeah, you see her, what she goes through. She narrates like her story, like how she she felt like she had to get married, and I don't feel that pressure, but I know people who feel that pressure of like, before I'm 30 I need to get married, or I need to be at this point in my life, everyone's doing this, and I really can just empathize with that, with her character, and seeing like she it's not her fault that she made those choices. Like, it's because she just felt like that's what's supposed to happen. And by making those choices, she she now has a kid, and she has to just keep living and going forward. And I really like the part where her I guess her business partner brings up the fact that you can't just I forgot the exact phrasing, but you can't just like float around and be around, and you got to move on too. You got to find some sort of happiness, and I really like that they still let Marissa's character grow through that in the process of the rest of this video, which we'll get to that point eventually. But I enjoyed seeing that she was able to still move forward from the relationship of what she's going through at this point of the story.
Definitely. Honestly, one of the things that you mentioned, I didn't really realize until you mentioned it, was how, like, I guess on Strangers Again, we actually never did get Marissa's perspective on it. We only had Josh's. And then it's great that she gets her own narrative in this story. And there's a lot of people that I know who are in Marissa's shoes, where they just rushed into a relationship, rushed into marriage, and not all of them worked out, and some of them have kids and they didn't work out. So I hate. We should have a little counter for every time I say relatable.
Today's word is relatable.
Yeah, word of the day. But yeah, no. And one of the lines that her friend says was really, I felt was really good. It's like one of the last cliche, but it was one of the last lines of that scene. She says something. And then she says, just don't convince yourself that you don't deserve. She says, you don't need a man to be happy. Just don't convince yourself that you don't deserve to be.
Oh, yeah. That's
to be happy. And I was like, man, that's actually really good. But yeah, the whole arc of Melissa's life before the present time in the series. She's I love how in tune with her feelings, and how she's owning up to her responsibility. She's taking responsibility for, she never puts it on fully on him. He also says that, like, he was I think the wrong person at the right time.
Yeah.
So and then then she has a kid, and you see just a scene with her sitting on a toilet with the pregnancy strip. Never been there, obviously, but I can tell that that's a scene that a lot of people can also relate to, and they do a really good job. And, like, even though that'll never be us, because we don't get pregnant, but they do a good job of making you feel the kind of, like, because she was like, I'm they were about to break up, or about to divorce, and they have a kid, and it's just like the whole world just falls apart. Again, the amount of emotion that goes through that short little arc of just the first half of the second episode, I think that was so well done.
I agree. I like the point that you brought up, that she took responsibility for what she was going through. Like, I like that too. Like, usually, I'm not saying every young adult or every single parent does this, but I've seen people who do, like, blame the kid or take it out on other people. And I again, Wong Fu Productions has done a great job at making these characters very mature. And I really like that aspect, because it shows the audience that, not everything that we do is bad. Whether it's good choices or bad choices, it's up to us to make our decisions based on what's happening to us. You can either go ahead.
No, and again, just taking responsibility for it, because it's so common after breakup to point out the blame, like, oh, they did this, they're the reason why it didn't work out. It's this, it's that, they're the problem. I'm fine. There's so many people who
I'm one of them. That's I'll blame the shit out of people.
but it's such a common thing, and that was how it was for me too, coming out of my relationships. But it took that time for me afterward to really like look into myself and be like, okay, well, I probably wasn't the best person that I could have been at the time. I was still maturing, I was still learning, and I wasn't quite ready for it. So that the fact that she's able to do that, as you said, shows a huge amount of maturity. And what I'll eventually talk about is Marissa, how she I guess her development through this series, and how much of an impact it was on me to see her journey through it.
Yeah, to continue on too, like because as she's narrating, she goes on a run, which I love how they added that detail into that. She goes on a run, and then that's actually how she meets Josh at the house, and then there's a little comedic scene there where she helps him get the sale or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they speak up in the upper room, and they just catch up, and he sees how she's doing, and it's very like small talk ish, and I like how she gets the phone call from Jean. Like, Jean wants to speak to her privately, so she leaves, and right before she leaves, or as she's leaving, excuse me, Josh looks at her while she's leaving, and it again, it parallels to when he saw her leaving the first time, and he chases her and says, hey, do you want to grab something to drink or hang out later or something like that? And she agrees to it. And I want to point this out too, because if you follow Wong Fu Productions, at least on their, I think they put it on their social media too, but I saw it on Facebook where there's like a little ad, like he sees her leave, and then they do like a flashback of him seeing her leave in the first part, and then like it's just like flashbacks of the scene, and then he chases her, and then they cut it off there. So I thought that was really cool that they added that as like a teaser or like an ad on social media. But I really liked that, like, they still give you that nostalgic feeling of 10 years ago. Like me, when I first viewed it, I was really giddy. I'm like, oh my God, they're getting together again, and it's really unique to see that these two characters who had such a bad breakup agree to speak and see each other again. And I think Josh is the one that points out, that says, like, this isn't just coincidence or something like that. Like, there's a reason why we saw each other today. So, let's talk it out or hash things out more. And then as Cathy Nguyen's character gets ready to leave her house, her ex-husband or her baby dad comes, and Jean talks about, like, let's work things out again, and let's for the sake of the daughter, that because she's getting older now, let's work things out. And then, like, she kind of hesitates a little bit, and then they cut to Josh at the bar or at the lounge, and he's waiting for her, and then cut scene. That's the end of part 2.
Oh, jeez, that cliffhanger. I cannot imagine if I had to wait like everyone else, which thank
I
you
would
again
flip
for
my
sharing it
table,
with me.
dude. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was already that pissed, even though I had access to episode 3. I can't imagine the people who have to endure this whole week to figure out what happened.
That's what I'm saying. Like, right when they announced that you could buy it, I was like, screw it. I am not waiting 3 weeks for the entire series. I don't know how you guys are waiting for this. It's not like an anime series where you can just binge, or, even though anime is weekly, we don't have the option to buy the whole season.
Oh, yeah, I wish
we
I
have
could.
to wait.
Jeez.
We have to wait. But with Wong Fu, they gave us the option. Like, you can buy the rest of this series. I'm just like, okay, you're just gonna support them anyway.
Yep.
But what was your thoughts on the pretty much just the overall of the second part? Because like we were saying before, man, I loved how Marissa was the focal point of this part, and I'm really liked how they let Cathy Nguyen narrate her character. Like, it was a whole new perspective of the character.
I am 100% on what you said. Like, again, with it being a pretty fresh thought, because I didn't really think of it before you mentioned it, but it's great that Marissa, Cathy Nguyen's character, actually gets a voice, gets a gets to portray her character, and I guess where she's come, and how that develops, and it's just kind of like it has like motifs of like someone just because one of the things she mentions to her friend is that I just feel like marriage isn't really in my cards anymore. Like it's kind of like someone who's dealing with like, a lot of times you get out of relationships, I can imagine that people getting out of marriages just feel like it's that they can never get married again, especially if they have kids involved. So it's just someone who's trying to cope with this change in their life. And it's very, again, to the point where it lets me feel and kind of understand what someone who has gone through that is going through, because I've never been there. But I think, again, great, amazing story writing. And the scene when she's trying to like help Josh get the sale, that was pretty hilarious.
Because she's like, yeah, I'm recently divorced. He's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry.
I didn't. Oh, and then she says that she flips houses, and he's like, I didn't know that, and she's like, how would you? We just met.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was funny. I liked how she helped him out with that. I thought that was really a really good scene, and it forced the other couple to like, yeah, we'll put our names out.
She called them out. She's like,
Yeah.
I didn't let my husband tell me like what to do and all that.
But to get to this last part, man, and this, I believe, my opinion, this third installment of Strangers Never Again, this third part is icing on the cake, man. Like
it's where the juice is. It's where the meat is, man.
It overall, it pulls the whole story together, like literally, kind of like Thanos using the reality stone and just like pulling everything in. It's like that, and to just like start off with the overview, like it just, I really enjoyed the message, the overall message that Wong Fu Productions is saying with this story. And before we get into detail, I just really, again, I cannot say it enough. I really appreciate what they've done for the past 10 years, and how we can just, again, the word relatable, we can just relate to these characters, and it really does feel like they're real in some sense. And I mean, me and you, we both watch so much like anime and fictional content and goofy comedic stuff. So like to be able to talk about something that's really like real life experience, it does change like my view on like how these stories are written. But yeah, to continue, I just like how they start off this third part where Josh is at the lounge or the bar or whatever, and then Cathy Nguyen walks in, and just like something so simple like that, like I was like, holy shit, she came through, and then they just
because he was like, he stood up and he was about to like leave, and you can kind of feel like the dread, like the she's not showing up, and he gets up he mopes as he gets up and turns around, and there she is.
I loved, like, I don't know, just the way how they shot that scene, the lighting, the way how it's just focused on them. I enjoyed it, and I like this next part, like when they start talking about like themselves and catching up. Like I've had encounters of people that I used to know, and we caught up together and talk about like what's happened, and in a way have closure. And I'm not saying that closure is a great thing for everyone, and I do believe that everyone should get closure. But there's a saying my aunt told me, it was like a long time ago, going through like a really bad experience of just a relationship. Just she told me, like, sometimes closure is not good for you. Like sometimes you don't need it to move on. Like that alone in itself is good enough for you to move on. Like if you have closure with someone that you feel like you need closure with, sometimes that's not good for you either. But nonetheless, I liked how they gave closure to both of these characters who had a very bad breakup, and they just talk about like what did we do wrong, and how much things have changed, going through the experiences of dating. And Cathy Nguyen's character, Marissa, she explains her whole story like to Josh, and the part where that hits me or hits home for me is when Josh is like, I don't have much to say. I don't. Every experience that I have is always a bad one, and I don't like experiencing the pain and stuff like that. And I really relate to that because that's how I see things. If I went through like a breakup, or let's say for example, like if I had a recent breakup, I would look at it as a huge loss. I wouldn't say like, oh, that's a great learning experience. There's nothing positive out of that.
Yeah, you never realize that off the bat.
Yeah. But and I really related to Josh's character where he was like, yeah, that's why I never like pursued anything, or I felt like I was just in this motionless type of state, and I really liked how Cathy Nguyen's character, she reassures him about like, you got to look at things differently. And like for me, the theme of this third part was perspective. Like they both saw their relationships very differently. Did you have any thoughts on that at all?
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you. I mean, they even like they eventually come around to saying it, which if it's okay if we kind of progress to actually when they're actually in the park.
Oh, before that, there's actually a line that Cathy Nguyen says to Phil's character. I don't remember it word for word, but she said like sometimes, what was it like? You need to be able to know that you're in a good relationship or something like that. Like I can't find the exact words. Damn it, I should have wrote it down because it's a really good quote. Hold on, let me look it up because someone on Facebook actually quoted that. So
it was something along the lines of like when you to know when you have a good thing.
I think so. Hold on, I'm about to pull it up right now. A friend of mine on Facebook posted it not too long ago. Let's see. Damn it, who posted it? I know someone posted it. Shit. Oh, wrong brother. It's one of Andrew's brothers that posted it. Because Andrew has a lot of brothers. If you guys know who Andrew is, that he's been on the podcast before. He has a huge family, and all his brothers, like he's got like 7 brothers, I think. And okay, right here. So there's a thin line between a relationship that needs work and a relationship that doesn't need work. That line that she says to Josh, like, because he talks about April and like how they broke up, and Cathy Nguyen like reassures him, like, she knows that he has something there, and she's like, you should work that out. It's not a loss yet.
Yeah, no, completely, because it's she says it's a thin line because it's really hard for some people because there's a lot of people who are in a relationship where they should get out because work will do nothing but just waste time, but then there's some where like maybe you're just not putting in enough work, and that right there, I'm gonna piggyback off you. That's so deep. It's very, very very, I don't want to say mature. It's very woke, of being able to like to realize that because when you're in a relationship, if you come to this question, it's usually because you have problems and you're heated and you're either looking for a way out or you're looking for a way to stay in. And oftentimes you just don't see that line, So I agree. It's a great line.
Yeah, and because of that line, they were able to like talk things out a little bit and to be able to go to the park. And she suggests that to Josh's character, like we should go to the park. And I like that they go back to where they first met, and they talk about like how they first or at least like the trail that caused them to first meet. They fixed the cement there, and Josh's character is like, Well, think of all the relationships that could have happened because they fixed the
Right.
the sidewalk. And they go and sit at the bench park and they just talk about like what's pretty much what's their next move. And before like my first viewing of this, I really thought like this was going to be like, you know, a maybe we should reconsider ourselves or something like that, you know.
Mhm.
And it cuts to, you know, to Josh going to help David Choi's character, Dom or Donald or Toretto, to
Toretto.
do the flowers, and he runs into April there. And you know, okay, before I move on, there was one thing my buddy Andrew was like, Ricky, like he's like, Ricky, do you think they had more friends than that? Because there was more people at that party. How come no one could have helped her with the flowers? You know, and I just thought of like, that's true. They had a lot more friends than just him. They could have contacted, but
His boy's looking out for him. That's what it is. Well, because even in episode the first one, Toretto, jeez, I can't hear that. He's
Family.
like, because he's sitting with him, he approaches him, and this is something we completely forgot. It's like how when he goes up to Josh and he's like, you know, when I invited you to a social event, I wanted, you know, I meant for it to be happy, not for you to be like awkward and moping around like this or whatnot, paraphrasing. But he, in that scene, he asks, you know, do you think it was the right decision? You know? And then, and who knows? That's actually a pretty conspiracy theory. Maybe his friends were, you know, he's looking out for him, perhaps. But he did mention that, like, that no one else could really help out. He says,
because they were all like keeping his soon-to-be fiance like busy.
Yeah. And he's like, I can't come do it because it's yada yada yada. And he's all, and then Josh has like, okay,
who's the florist?
Who's the florist? And he says, well, that's the thing. And then fast forward. Well transitioned, in my opinion. But
and to bring it back just a little bit, like back at this, I like this is the thing, like when you just like freshly watch it, like you can't remember everything, but
right.
But the part where like Marissa talks about like how Donald still sends her happy birthday messages.
Oh yeah,
and then I that part completely passed me up. Like I like that part as well because she talks about like how they kept in contact for a little bit up until where, you know, she had the kid or
in relationships.
Yeah. And then like he said, like, you know, to him, it was just like, why do that when we moved on? And she goes, and then she said something along the line of like, I assumed you just forgot.
Right. And that's, you know, there's so much when you mention that, there's so much there, and just that little exchange right there, because it's just like, you know, I hate bringing it up, but Tekashi 69, he mentioned when he, you know,
we're quoting 6ix9ine.
Well, I mean, it was kind of it's probably the only time I ever will quote this guy. But you know, he said like, if I write a 6 and you're standing on the other side of it, what do you see? It's going to be a 9, but to me it's a 6 because it's a matter of perspective. And I think that there's so many motifs on perspective on this whole thing, and it's great. Because, you know, just a little something like that, because it's an event, you know, they just stop exchanging happy birthdays texts. To Josh, it means one thing. It's just, you know, hey, why bother? We're both in relationships. You know, we should, you know, maybe it's best not to. It could just make things complicated. And then for her, it's just, well, I just figured you just forgot. You know, that's just a little concept like that goes so deep, and it's great. I love it.
I still can't believe you quoted 6ix9ine.
Let's just
should I just clip that? Quoting 6ix9ine in Wong Fu Productions.
You know, if you choose to.
Short film review.
I even preface like, God, I really want to.
Too late. It's recorded.
We don't want to put this.
No, we'll keep it. I besides the fact that it's 6ix9ine, that again, perspective is like the theme of this third episode. And I do want to add on to as that to that as well. Like from my own personal experience, like I if I knew like whether me or the person I used to be with were in relationships, I wouldn't keep like honestly, I would, like I said before in this episode, I'm pretty petty. So if anything, I probably wouldn't even keep contact with her anymore. But like looking at this in more of a hindsight kind of view, I would probably be like Phil or Philip as well, and just why bother to do it? There's no point of doing it. But to continue on to the park scene where they cut to like the engagement of Donald's character to his girlfriend, and I believe this. I'll let you talk this part since I know you like this part the most. Where
before I get into there, like there's so much that happened when they're on the bench talking that if it's okay, I want to go back and
before we touch up on Phil's
the main gist of it is what was it? I'm just trying to get these words out because it's because and it's gonna tie into the whole motif of everything. If it's okay with you, I'm gonna roll from this into the last scene. When this whole time we're kind of just wondering like, oh, are they gonna get back together, or and there's this huge tug of war that's happening from you finding out that, well, it starts off with coming off of strangers again, and then into the episode 1 you have Josh, who is just has not found success, and then you have Marissa, who has found her success but it failed. So both of them are like, hey, they're both on the market right now, what's gonna happen. And then there's this tug of war that kind of forces you to become invested in their relationship even more. The way season 2 ended. Sorry, I gotta.
Stay hydrated.
No, sorry. I had my allergies have been kind of bothering me, and I've been coughing. But yeah, no. So in episode 2, at the end, when you just kind of like, when Marissa, we don't know if Marissa shows up or not. And it looks like she's not. You can't help but kind of like feel like sad because individually you want them to kind of like end up together. So they do a really good job in forcing you to become invested in the two of them. And then they're sitting on the bench on episode 3, and they're going through this whole, walking through all the steps. From what it looks like they might get back together. And then I really love how they drove it home, because even Marissa asks, what was it? Like, do you really think this is our second chance? And then she throws it to Josh, and then Josh is like, I don't know, it just kind of it kind of does. And why else would fate bring us back together? And then she says, to give us some perspective. And I think that really, like, that is the hammer to the nail about this whole thing about perspective. Because then it kind of, you kind of just set you're still kind of like wondering what's going to happen, and you don't really find out until they start to go back into monologues. But everything from the scene when Josh goes to, you kind of get hints of it when he eventually goes to April's flower shop, and he's kind of helping her. It's funny because you can kind of sense a little bit of like guardedness from from April. She's like, of all the people they send you,
Yeah.
And then
I thought it was pretty funny because like I'm pretty sure she wasn't expecting to see her then like her ex there, and I just thought that was pretty clever that she still kind of kept her guard up.
Yeah. she even kind of turns kind of like bossy to kind of like as in like it's like a pseudo kind of like, what I call it is like a pseudo revenge, but like as in like, but I'll still accept you kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because he's all like, what do you need help with? She says, you can dethorn the roses. And he's like, that doesn't sound like an entry level job. And she's like, don't worry, I have band-aids. And her way of saying like, I don't give a fuck. Go clip uh the thorns. And then she's like kind of bossy. Um I've kind of kind of been through girls who are like that before. So but man, and then if it's okay for me to get into the actual
Yeah,
honestly,
get to the part where, you know, because after the garden scene, they just they cut to the scene where the engagement, and
right,
you
right.
see both April and Josh's character.
Mhm.
Like
Well,
there's something there, you know, like
right.
they know that there's something there, and then like I guess in that moment of like just pure happiness and love, and you know, seeing your friends get engaged, you would feel very excited for them, you know. And the part that
Right.
I really liked was how they shot their hands next to each other, and they held
That was a
hands.
great shot.
Yeah.
And you can kind of, but they kind of shifted from the hands to the face back to the hands to kind of show like, is he really grabbing my hand? Is he really holding my hand? Like, nope, he is. Oh, okay, we're holding hands. But it's kind of like in a more of like a, not an awkward way. I made it sound really awkward because I'm just awkward. But even before that, there was the monologue, because it's still cut to Marissa's scene where she's, you know, Jean's like, so Jean comes up to her and they talk, and she's like, I don't think it's a good idea, you know, to get back together. And this is kind of where you start to realize that they yeah, well, Marissa's not getting back together with Jean, and it looks like Josh is working things out with April, so I guess they're not going to get back together. Kind of
Yeah.
deal. But man, the this last scene with Josh and April is, whew, geez, fire.
The
It
feels,
was
oh my god,
so
when they
good.
sat next to each other and just like started
Yeah.
talking their emotions out. And I again, Dia Frampton, man, she did a fantastic job in
Oh my
this role.
god.
Like when she's talking about, like, you know, you made me feel some type of way, or you made me feel like I wasn't good enough, and she's talking, you see the tears coming out, like not falling, but like her eyes get watery, and it's just like, dude, like you could see how her character felt through those projections. Like I
Mhm.
love that, like everything again, like with perspective, like we saw what Josh was doing. He was throwing his insecurities and he was throwing his issues at her, and we don't even know how she was feeling. And when she gets to voice her feelings of what happened before, it really showed, like, yeah, she, you know, she at the end, she still truly wanted to be with Josh at the end, but because of those issues, like she felt like it really did break her down, or broke down like her character.
And you know, one of the things I love, absolutely love how like non-Hollywood or how non-Disney this is, because it's you know, if it were a Hollywood movie or a Disney movie and you know this happened, you know, Josh would go to April, and you know they would work it out and she would just fall straight into his arms. But in a more realistic way, you know, it's, they sit down and you know April asks him, did you see anyone? And he says, yeah, I did. Someone helped me get perspective, someone who made me realize that like I never want to become strangers with you.
Oh
And
man, damn
geez,
it,
yeah,
Wong Fu, dude, their writing is so good.
he's cutting onions, man.
I wish
Jesus.
I could write like that. Like I like, because we both like to write and we both have different writing styles. But when it comes to like really writing something like pure like that, I'm just like, yeah, I quit. You know, like it's like hearing a good
Yeah.
singer really sing good. You know, that makes, like, for example, like if you heard like Tori Kelly or Bruno Mars sing live, like it
Geez,
doesn't want
yeah.
to make you sing anymore. It's like there's a reason why they're good.
Yeah. Well, also one of the reasons why they're good is because they don't give up. They keep doing it. So follow your dreams. But anyways, no, she well, what I love about it is like she's hesitant at first. She's like trying to make sure that he's sure about it too. You know, that is when she starts crying. She's, oh my god, such great, amazing acting. The tears just feel so real, you know, and you know, uh she says that like all this time you've been telling me that we're not compatible, that we're not going to work out, and I've started to convince myself that that's true. And then he asks like, well, she goes to this, she has to let him know how she feels, where she's coming from. In a real world, this is probably how it would happen. And then he asks her, well, what, I'm reciting him because I just love the dialogue. I love the script. He says to her, well, what do you want? And then so beautifully written, she says, I want us to both be wrong. As far as like, I want, because you believe we wouldn't work out, and I'm starting to believe it too, but I just want us to both be wrong. And then she rests her head on his shoulders as they hold hands. I'm like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. Jeez. It's a masterpiece, man. Wong Fu really did a masterpiece with this.
I loved how they both wrapped up, both Marissa and Phillips, or I keep calling him Philip because your friend's name is Philip. Phil, oh not Phil, but Josh's and Marissa's story. I love how they both wrapped them up like kind of like at the same time. You see Cathy Nguyen, it's like she moves forward, but she doesn't drag on her past experiences. She's like accepting what's to come, and she realizes like her happiness isn't in any relationship, but her happiness is with her child.
Exactly.
And then with Josh's character, his happiness was with April. And I really liked that, like you said before, like they didn't make it Hollywood, or they didn't make it obvious that these two were together. Like it really just took these two seeing each other again and seeing what they've gone through to realize what they've had. And that's a cliche kind of like weighted like a moral type thing. It's kind of cliche, like you don't know what you have till it's gone type thing. But it's very, very realistic and it's very applicable in our daily lives, that it's true. You don't know what you have until it's not there no more. And if you have the opportunities to still chase those, whether it's dreams or lovers or whatever, if you still have opportunities to be able to achieve those, then you shouldn't, or one shouldn't like stop themselves or cut themselves short. And I really think that as an overall message, Wong Fu did so well with that and wrapping up both of these characters' stories. But the one quote here that Marissa says, and I even wrote it. I wrote it down on July 28th at 10:47 p.m. on Facebook. I have it right here on my screen. I don't want to share screen it because I put a GIF of Tyrese Gibson crying, which meant for me, like that was my reaction. But but the quote goes, "Strangers are people who have no impact on your life, but no matter where we go, even if we never see each other again, we'll always know the impact that we had on each other back then, and oddly enough, once more today. That's not a stranger." And I'm getting chills just reading that. And like it shows you that these two just needed to see each other that one more time, like for whether it was for closure, perspective, or just to something. Like there's a reason why these two came back and met, and like Josh's character said, it's not like coincidence that they just ran into each other again. And it's a more I like that they gave Marissa that quote, because if you remember back in the first part, Josh has that really good quote too. Like, if we decide to break up and if we ever cross paths, we'll always know, like if we never see each other again, we'll always know, like back at this time, like we crossed paths before, and I wish I wish for you to be happy type thing. But I really like how they gave this quote to Marissa, because she's the one that we don't realize like how much weight she carries with the show. Like her perspective of this show, like she was practically the other half of the story. And I really like that they gave her this quote, and for just not just for the story's sake, but like even for us, like it's to realize like maybe we shouldn't be salty about certain exes or certain people that cross our paths, or like there's a reason why we meet people, and there's reasons why we know people and don't become friends with them or not lovers with them anymore. And it all comes down to just experience and perspective and growth. And I think what Wong Fu has done with Strangers Never Again, man, like it is beautifully written and shot and
That's an
everything.
understatement. It's to say it's beautifully written is an understatement. Man,
It's
it's so deep and connected, like of how relatable. Sorry, yeah, again, I'm using the word again, but relatable it is. Great. It's I would say it's a masterpiece.
Do you have any last thoughts, Michael, about this? You know, before we
If
wrap things up, man.
you,
Me personally, I'm really glad that I was able to talk about this topic with you, man, because you know, I don't know. You know, for folks that don't know, me and Michael, we've gotten a lot like closer due to like what's happened recently this year, and especially when I got stuck in Dallas last month. You know, and to be able to talk to you about like something like this, and to know that we both enjoy the content that Wong Fu has written. You know, being writers ourselves and very open-minded to like genres like this. You know, I'm really glad that I was able to kind of geek out with you about Strangers Never Again.
man, I feel the exact same because like even when it comes to anime, there's like who can I talk to about anime? No one really watches anime, but you and I connect on that. We connect on a lot of other things, and then this is just. I remember you coming to me with this, and I was like, I remember seeing the trailer and you showed me this. I'm like, oh yeah, like it's out, and then we kind of just went on this wavelength of it. Um, but I don't want to take up too much more time. But there were some things that I did want to mention about the I guess the series as a whole. I wanted to mention it as we were going through, but would it be okay if I
Yeah.
touch up on them? Like I don't know if you noticed this either, but watching it a second time through was a lot more eye-opening. There were a lot of motifs that they would use. If you watch episode 1, there's a lot of I wouldn't really call it B-roll footage, would you? But you know, a lot of background scenes that they show a lot of April. And one thing I realized is that episode 1, I'm probably very analytical about this, but episode 1 is actually about like finding a relationship, which is Josh's theme. Episode 2, you know, there's I think I mentioned this to you before, but like you know, the very first scene you see Marissa wake up, you know, in a room. She's in a double bed. Her daughter comes to wake her up, but the other side of the bed is completely made and it's empty. It kind of signifies that she's alone. And I guess the motif of hers is just being alone and being independent. And you know, the way, again, beautifully written, how they put these little like foreshadowing in there. It's amazing. I didn't catch on to all these until I watched it the second time. But you know, again, all together, like it's honestly, the best way I can put it is, you know, again, they Wong Fu didn't really give us what we wanted, but they gave us what we needed. Maybe I'm
The
crazy
Dark
for thinking
Knight
it's like
of the internet. The Batman of love romance and the whole love genre.
well, I mean, also because like, you know, again, you know, we came into this partially kind of hoping that Josh and Marissa were going to get back together. That's what we wanted, and throughout the whole majority of the series, we kind of wanted them to get together. But at the end, it's just like I think it's a way of like Wong Fu telling us that, like, you know, it's, you know, even though you're not where you feel like you want to be, or feel like, you know, you're like us in your 30s or approaching your 30s and you're not where you want to be, it's just it's a way of them telling us like, hey, it's not always, you know, gonna be a clear cut like Hollywood ending. You know, sometimes reality is it might not be what you want, but it might be what's best for you. Because in this case, Josh ends up with April, and then Marissa, you know, she has to redefine her life and find her purpose in being a single mom. And her, like as you said, her life is now with her child, and it's just it's such, as you said, a mature, realistic ending and like a real world. You know, it's, you know, not Disney, not Hollywood, and I think this was Wong Fu's like gift to us, to like kind of like a message to us, to tell us, hey, it's it's not like the movies,
Yeah.
even though this is a movie.
Well, that our thoughts and perspective on what we think is love or romance or relationships is not clear cut, happy, sparkly fairy tale princess shit.
Mhm.
It's very hard and it's difficult, and there's a lot of growth in whether you're single or in a relationship. There's growth
Oh
for
yeah.
both aspects of being a person, and I think that what Wong Fu has done for their viewers is to remind us that for especially I think it really hits home for a lot of the people who maybe feel like they're not or capable of loving, or they feel like they're out of love. And I think that that what Wong Fu has done is like reassured everyone like it's not bad to be either single or in a relationship.
Mhm. No, agreed. Like there's some people who've chosen to like remain single, or who are single parent and are devoted to be a single parent and just want to be empowered, who want to be independent and being or being empowered and being independent, and more power to those people. um uh it's like kind of like we're not always in charge of the cards that we're dealt, and things might not always be as we seem, but that sometimes all it takes is just a little perspective.
Yeah,
To,
and I think that's a great way to end this episode, man. And again, perspective was one of the major themes, and I think that if Wong Fu is, if they ever take the time to listen to this podcast, to include us in a episode, please.
that would be
Or like not so much in an episode, but if Wong Fu, if Cathy Nguyen or Wong Fu or Phil or anyone of that channel, if you guys do see this review, I hope you guys do enjoy our take on this. And whether you're a watcher or a listener of Spoiler Force podcast, or just someone that's new to the channel, I really hope that if you guys even made it this far, thank you for hearing us just talk about this amazing series that Wong Fu has brought to the world. And I cannot say it enough, man. This is by far this is the reason why Strangers Again was my favorite, series or a short film from Wong Fu. It's because it's very real, and I I think this series will stand like the test of time of just like the internet phase of just like short films and stuff. And especially and there's like a bit of like bragginess to it, because it's from an Asian group that made this, like you feel proud to know that this is from like Asian folks, and that we can produce something like this, and I really enjoyed overall what Strangers Never Again has brought. And whoever has not watched it yet, or who is contemplating watching it, just do it. This series is so good. I really wish that there could be more, but at the same time, I think that this was a great way to wrap up both the stories of Josh and Marissa.
agreed. And I'll even go ahead and say, if you made it this far into the podcast and have not seen it, like you shouldn't be you should watch it before you, because it's spoilers. And it's I if the Wong Fu production team does see this, uh you know they amazing job. And also let me know how much I overanalyze this, because I am way too analytical.
But yeah, man, again, this is pretty much episode 96 of Spoiler Force Podcast, man. I cannot thank you enough, Micah, for giving me your time to do this, man. I hope to be able to have you on more podcasts in the future,
I look forward to
not
it, man.
not just do reviews, but we'll talk about almost anything, man. And
Yeah, and
again, go ahead.
no, I just say I got to give it to you. First off, again, I thanks for allowing me to be on your podcast. I was really excited, and I'm really excited. Not just it's one factor to be on your podcast. and just hanging out with my cousin Ricky. Second, because I just this you know Strangers Never Again really really struck something in me, and it's like it's so it's just so juicy, man. It's so good. um but and then the other thing I want to say is, Ricky, I just want to let you know, you've come a long way, and you've put so much work into it. I just want to let you know I'm super proud of you, and I admire your ambition and everything. So keep going at it, man. Keep
Thank you so
inspiring.
much.
Um, and just keep the fact that you're following your passion and your dream. I think that alone is inspiring to myself, and I'm sure a lot of other people too.
Thank you so much, man. And honestly, getting this far to like shit, did you can see it in the title, episode 96, man. I'm
That's crazy, man.
4 episodes away from 100, dude. Like it's crazy
That's crazy.
to think about, and it's still hard to process to this time. Like I really felt like time has been moving so quickly because doing this, and I'm glad I get to bring you and even our other cousins, Bobby and Lee and our cousin Mong. Like we get to. I'm glad I get to bring you guys to be on this experience with me. And like if it wasn't for like you and the other viewers and followers, dude, I wouldn't be motivated to do this, man. Like that, it's like an extra push for me to realize to see like I have to keep doing something like this.
Mhm. But yeah. Again, thanks for having me on, you guys. If you're listening, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Follow my boy Ricky on all his socials. Support him. He works really hard.
Yeah, thank you for that shout out. So I got to wrap things up. If you heard that in the background, it's time to go. So I'll probably won't cut that out. I'll just keep that in. And yeah,
You can cut it if you because I don't want to over.
no. My uncle came in literally and was like, "Are you done?"
Okay.
So yeah, I'm just gonna keep that in there just so like, people can get a more realistic feel what it's like to podcast when you have a house full of people.
When you don't have a studio.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and I hope you guys have a great day. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow, like, share, subscribe, and rate Spoiler Force Podcast. If you have any guest recommendations, comments, questions, concerns, or criticism, you can email me at rickyvang92@gmail.com or message me online on any of my social media platforms.